Well, in my father's message last week, I don't know if you remember, but he mentioned about this family trip that we took to Lisbon and St. Michael, San Miguel, last summer. And on this trip, it was really a trip of a lifetime. We had such a great time. And while we were there, we experienced one of the most powerful and moving moments in our family history. And it was really just so special. So my dad moved to this country when he was 7 years old. 7 years old. And when he came here, you know, he was young, but he has a lot of memories and a lot of experiences that he still remembers from the country, from Portugal. And so while we were there visiting in Portugal last summer, we had the incredible opportunity to go to his childhood home. And it was so special. There's a nice little 80-something-year-old lady who lives there now, and it was so incredible. That's the house. That's our family on outside the house, and it was just so special. So we got to go inside, and it was so awesome. My dad was taking us through and telling us about vovô and vovô. Raise your hand. Levanta sua mão. Yeah. So that's my vovô and vovô. Those are my dad's parents, the legends themselves. And so this was their home that they lived in as a family, my grandparents and their 4 children. And it was incredible to walk in the home and to go room by room, and my dad's telling us stories about the things that they used to do and how they used to live. And while we were going through, we saw this little staircase, and that's it. It's a little tiny staircase. I'm telling you, I think Portuguese people are the closest thing to hobbits you'll find on the earth. Because it was small, man. Like, no way Dirk was walking through those staircases. But, you know, so we go up and we're like, is this staircase going to hold us? Because there's 10 of us. So we go up to the 2nd floor, and my dad's telling us that this is where my vovô and vovô used to sleep. My vovô used to sew and hem garments. And then as we're walking through, we come to this little, like, cut open hole in the wall. And this is it. So we walk in, and that opening, no word of a lie, must be like maybe 2.5 feet by maybe 4 feet high. And we see this, and I'm like, oh, that must have been like a storage closet or something, you know? And my dad says that was where him and his 3 siblings used to sleep. That was their bedroom. And so it was a really powerful and moving moment, because my father stopped and looked and was kind of telling us, and he walked into the room, crouched into the room, and suddenly burst into tears. And when I tell you, I don't think there's a moment that my dad, my brother, my mom can recount that we've ever seen my father even cry. I mean, he's a man of steel, and it's not because he thinks men can't cry. It's just we've never seen it. He's just so strong and so capable. And so to see him stop, I mean, we hung on every word like it was the very oxygen in our lungs that we were clinging on to. I mean, we just stopped immediately in our tracks. And he's crying, and he just stops and says, I can't believe it. I can't believe what God has done for us. And it was just so special to see the conditions that our family, our grandparents used to live in the old country that my dad used to live in. And then to see what God has done in our family since was just absolutely so powerful. It was so moving, and it was so special. And I actually want to share a video with you this morning that we filmed it, and it was tremendously special. So get your tissues ready.
I haven't gotten pictures of him and everything.
Yeah, like at least in some of the rooms.
I can't believe it.
You okay?
She said something about original. I just can't believe it, babe. I know. What God has done for us.
Yeah, I know.
we take so many things for granted, yeah. Being here with my kids and my grandkids is just unbelievable. I'm sorry, guys.
No, please, God, mercy.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's crazy.
No, I'm glad we got in. Thanks.
I remember my aunt, my Uncle Joe coming from the United States, and we had to give up our bedroom. And they slept over here, and we all slept on this floor here to make it work so that they could have a place to sleep. It's just unbelievable, man.
I know.
My mind was blown, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know how my mom and dad did it, but they did it.
I haven't gotten pictures of him and everything.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know about you, but that moment for us as a family was, I mean, powerful. Powerful. Seeing what they went through, seeing how they moved to this country, picked up everything, suffered, worked hard, and to see what God has done and his faithfulness in their lives. I mean, it was just single-handedly one of the most moving and powerful moments of my life. I will never forget that moment, but think of how blessed we are. Pastor Robson was here like 3 weeks ago, and we got to see what God is doing through your giving here at CFC in India with the orphanage that we have and the drilling of the water wells. We are so tremendously blessed in this country, and we take it for granted. We complain and we weep and we cry about the smallest things. People would die to have the opportunities that you and I have in this country. And people do die trying to even just get into this country to give their family a better life. And so let's just take a moment to really, really just comprehend, even in the smallest way, how blessed we are to live in the greatest country on earth. You know, I think about that moment that you just witnessed. I'm so happy we have that on film. That's just so awesome. But film, what am I, 70? Gosh. On video. But, you know, I just think of, when I think back of that moment, I just think of the word legacy. Legacy. Turn to your neighbor and say legacy. You know, I think about the legacy that's been passed down from my grandparents on both sides down to my parents, and how my parents have passed down that legacy to us, my brother and I, as children, and Brandon and Christian and our new adopted sister from last week, and they just passed down that legacy in so many ways, and then how we get to pass it down to Timmy, you have 3 kids, and to my future children one day, and it's just so amazing, the word legacy that comes to mind, and it's of tremendous importance, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So what is legacy? Legacy is an inheritance or quality handed down from a previous generation. And this includes more than just passing on wealth or money when you die. It really refers to the passing along of character, beliefs, and faith, really. God is a God of legacy. Turn to your neighbor and say that again. God is a God of legacy. Yeah, we'll work on getting in sync next time, but it's... I'm joking. So, you know, about a dozen times in the Bible, we hear the Lord say, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And, you know, it causes us to question, why does God, the God of the universe, why does he identify himself in the form of saying, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Why does he need to bring up their names? And I just can't help but think that it's because our God is a God of legacy. You know, he made a promise to Abraham that in Genesis 12:1 that he established this covenant with him, and he continued that covenant with Abraham's son Isaac in Genesis 21:12, and then later he established it with Isaac's son, Jacob, in Genesis 28. And God is a God of legacy. What he promised to Abraham, he said, I will fulfill in the generations coming after you. And, you know, we know the story of the Israelites, and maybe you don't, but they kind of went a little wayward. They ended up enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. And later on, God reintroduced himself to Moses in Exodus 3:15. And in Exodus 3:15, it says, say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, my name to remember for all generations. So even 400 years later, God is introducing himself again to Moses by the identity of promise that he made to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And later on, Jesus clarifies this in Matthew 23:31-32. And he says, but now as to whether will be resurrection of the dead, haven't you ever read about this in the scriptures? Long after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had died, God said, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So he is the God of the living, not the dead. So here's Jesus, you know, even further on, hundreds of years later, and he is still referring to God as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Jesus shows us that God says, I am. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not I was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what this shows us is that God is saying, I am still their God. Because guess what? They're rejoicing with me in front of me right now in heaven. So I am still their God. I'm not the God of the dead. I'm the God of the living. And they are living eternally with me in heaven, because that is the great reward of living in the good faith of the Lord. You know, their legacy lives on as men. And they had their shortcomings. They had their failures. You read the Old Testament, it's really messed up. You know, there's some crazy stuff that happens. But God still says, even in their imperfection, my glory will be shown, and that legacy of faith will live on. So don't feel like you have to be perfect this morning for God to use you. You don't feel like you have to have it all together for God to do a work in your family. You know, your life is so special to the Lord, and you may not know it. You may not think it. You know, maybe you had parents who told you were worthless. Maybe they weren't there. But I'm telling you that you matter. Because in Psalm 139, it says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. In Jeremiah 1:5, the first part of the verse, it says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Believe it or not, your life has tremendous meaning and tremendous purpose. You're not an accident, all right? Even if your parents said, oops, you know, your God and Father in heaven says, oof, man, that is a beautiful creation that I just made. That creation that I just knitted and formed in that womb, that is a beautiful creation. So your parents might have said, oops, but God said, oof, oh man, that is a good creation right there. You know, you're perfect in the eyes of your Father. You don't need to do anything to earn his love. You are his creation, and because you are his creation, you are already loved. Nothing you're going to do is going to outrun his love. Nothing you're going to do in this life is going to make you too far to return to the love of the Father. We sang it last week at the end of the sermon, run to the Father, man. You know, it's never too late. It's never too early, and your life is never too messed up to run back to his arms. So know that, you know, your life is not a waste. God formed you for a purpose, and the world will try to kind of mess that message up in us. You know, legacy is something that we've just kind of tossed aside. You know, we think about, you know, the world's message is to live for today, live for yourself, right? Buy now, pay later. Take out a loan so you can have this, and rack up your credit card so you can have that to keep up with this one, that one, and the other one. And really, all that does is fuel the lie that your life is just for you. Go and live for you, and don't apologize on how you live it. And this couldn't be a larger lie from the pit of hell. We need to realize that what we do today has tremendous importance. You know, what you do today you could have a lasting impact forever. What you do today, you have no idea the impact you could make that could change someone's life forever, even in the smallest way. So your life is more important than just you. They're partying downstairs, the CFC kids. They're having a good time down there. CFC kids, good thing. You know, send your kids down there. They're doing a great job. But your life is more important than just you. You know, even, I'm going to go there, even your hurt, your pain, your trauma, the things you suffered as a child, that those things that you were told that you would never be great, even those things, the pain, even take the joy and the victory and the passion, your energy, your giftings, your talents, your anointings, your abilities, whatever it is, that isn't just for you. That's for God to use in you, for you to use to serve others, to bless others, to teach others, to disciple others, to train others, and to help others. What you go through is not just for you. God didn't save you for you to just go to heaven. Believe it or not. You didn't just get saved so you can get a one-way ticket to heaven and cash that check in when you get at the door and say, here's my, this isn't the Polar Express, okay? Or, so you don't just cash in your ticket at the door and get admission for free. You know, God saved you so you can help save others. God forgave you so you can help forgive others. God loves you so you can go and love others. You know, I hate to say it, I know it's anti-intuitive, but the truth hurts. Your life is not just about you. It's not all about you. That hurts a little bit. Because in our eyes, you know, every decision we make and everything that we do, it's relative to the lens we're looking out through. But I'm here to tell you that your life's just not about you. Kind of doesn't make sense, but I'm telling you it is. Because imagine if we lived in a society where this was the mentality that our life wasn't just about me. What a different world we would live in. I know traffic would probably feel a little bit better. I'm not going to lie. Definitely. But, you know, your life isn't just about you. Imagine if Jesus came to earth and just lived for himself. And he said, no, I came not to be served, but to serve. To serve. And if Jesus, the God of heaven, came to earth to do this, who are we to not use the experiences in our life to go and to serve and to love and to forgive others? You know, Matthew 5:14 through 16 says, you are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. You know, so many of us are hiding our lights under baskets. This light, this salvation, this joy that God has given us, even those difficult things, the pain, the hurt, those childhood hurts that linger and that sting for a long time, we hide these things under baskets as if they're supposed to remain hidden. But the fact of the matter is, Jesus said himself, it should be like a lamp on a nightstand, on a stand, and it should let your light shine to others. You know, we hide under baskets of pain, worry, fear, but God calls us to let our light shine. Let your testimony be a light. Let the message of the gospel of the saving power of Jesus Christ be a light to others in your life. Don't hide it. Don't contain it. Don't be ashamed of it. Just open your mouth and watch what God will do when you become the light that shines. You know, the mark of a true follower of Christ is really equivalent with our desire to leave a Christ-like legacy in others. Missed a good opportunity to say amen. I'm going to repeat it because it's a mouthful, okay? The mark of a true follower of Christ, it's equivalent with our desire to leave a Christ-like legacy in others. Better, great job. You know, your desire to make disciples, it's directly correlated with your salvation. If you've been saved, then you should be making a Christ-like legacy in others. That is simply discipleship. You don't have to be a pastor. You don't have to be a worship leader. You don't have to serve here on a Sunday morning. Your legacy is something that you create, and that far outweighs the hour and a half that we spend here on a Sunday morning. That should be lived out in your daily life. See, the Christian life is that of producing. And in John 15:8 and 16, it says, when you produce much fruit, you are my true disciples. This brings glory to my Father. And 16 says, you didn't choose me, I chose you, and I appointed you to go forth and produce lasting fruit, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask using my name. So we have to be producing lasting fruit. It doesn't say produce once and forget about it, or, you know, you get over that big trial in your life and, you know, that's your one testimony and you use it once and then you toss it out. It says produce lasting fruit. That should be an ongoing thing that we are always doing. And I want to share the story of two families in American history. If you know me, I love my history. So I want to share two stories of, and you might have heard these before, about these families. There was a guy named Max Juke, and this was back in the 1700s, and this guy was he was a hard knock life for him, you know, and he had weak ethics. He left a bad legacy. He slept around, had illegitimate children everywhere. He was ridiculed, and his values were to be forgotten, and his faith was non-existent. And on the screen, it says the legacy that he left for his family. So he had 700 known descendants that was traced. 280 were paupers. Now, paupers I had to Google as well. It is poor or homeless, all right? 140 known criminals, 60 thieves, 6 murderers, 128 prostitutes, and 300 of them died in early age. So this is the legacy of Max Juke, one who lived his life for himself, one who lived to please himself and himself alone. And then you take a second man named Jonathan Edwards, a great preacher, and his family tree extends to about 1,400 people. 100 were lawyers, 30 were judges, 13 were college presidents, 100 were professors, 62 were physicians, 100 were clergymen, pastors, missionaries, theologians, 80 were elected to public office, 1 being a vice president. 60 were authors who wrote 135 books, and 75 were Army and Navy officers. Legacy. Jonathan Edwards was a famous pastor and preacher who led an amazing revival through this country. He didn't live for himself. He put his life aside to serve others. And look at the legacy of people. And you know, this isn't 100% like, you know, fully accurate. I'm sure that there were people in Jonathan Edwards' family who strayed away, and I'm sure that there were people in Max Juke's family that did great things. But what you can see is the overwhelming majority of them succeeded or failed due to the legacy of choice of one person. Of one person. See, you're living a legacy whether you want to or not. You're creating a legacy whether you're intentional about it or not. What you're doing is forming a legacy for others around you. And I get it. Some of you might be here and you think legacy and you think just children. All right, I don't have kids yet, or I'm never having kids, or I never got the opportunity to have kids. But legacy goes beyond your children. Legacy goes to the people that we meet, the people that we touch, the ones that our lives intertwine with. Our legacy extends into all those we come into contact with. And, you know, and some of you may be here, and you might relate to Max Juke's family. You might think, man, I was really passed down a terrible legacy. One of drunkenness and alcoholism, one of drug abuse, you know, one of prostitution, one of addiction, one of debt, one of brokenness, pain, hurt, lawlessness, whatever that is. I'm sure that we can relate in some ways. But instead of, in our world, we cater to this too much, and we say, oh, we have to feel bad for everybody and coddle everybody to make them feel better. But the reality of the matter is, instead of looking at yourself with so much pity, why don't you look at it as if God has placed you here to stop that curse? Like, I may experience this. I may have been born into this, but this doesn't define me. This generational curse can stop with me. But you sit there and you pity yourself and you feel bad for yourself and you try to make everyone else feel bad for you. You're going to stay there and you're going to fall into the same rut. You're going to do the same things because guess what? If you're not working to undo that curse, it's going to happen. That's how generational curses happen. If you're not intentional about breaking it, it will be passed on. But it takes one person, one man, one woman of intentionality to say, no, this isn't going to be my family. This might have been generations before me, but it's stopping here. I don't care, right? So it has to start with you. Your legacy starts now. It's determined by you. You have all the power you need in Christ to break the bondage and the chains that has bound your family for so long. And I don't care how old you are. You could be 90, you could be 100, you could be 10, 5, 6, 17, 21. I don't care how old or young you are. Your legacy starts now, and it's never too late to create. You look at the life that, my grandparents and my father have worked hard to do and to make for our family. And a lot of people will look at it and say, man, wow, you guys are blessed. The Lord must really favor you guys. And while God does show his grace and mercy to our family in a tremendous way, we acknowledge that. What anybody sees is it's not luck. It's not luck. You didn't see the hours that this man right here and this woman right here put in to move to this country, to speak a different language, come here and not understand a thing. Move out in faith and say, I got to give my family a better life. You didn't see the hours where my father and my mother were working countlessly and continually to provide for our family. It's not just, oh, God just dropped a blessing bomb on us and all of a sudden you have riches and you have glory and you have blessing and you have legacy and all these different things. They had to work for that legacy. They had to work to continue that legacy. In the same way that a bad legacy can turn around, a good legacy can also flip. It takes maintaining the legacy. It takes training and teaching the legacy to the generations around you and to the people around you as well. That takes maintenance. When they reaped a harvest, you didn't see all the toil that was happening behind the scenes. You didn't see the mornings they had to wake up at 5 in the morning. You didn't see how in that garden they had to go and pluck those weeds. They had to kill those character flaws and character traits that were leading in the family, and they had to maintain and continually kill those things and drive them out continually, because they will come back in certain ways, and the enemy will always try to work those generational curses back into your life, but you have to be intentional to work them out. When I think of a man of legacy, I think of Joshua. After Moses brought the Israelites and crossed over the Red Sea, he didn't make it to the Promised Land. Joshua ended up taking the Israelites over into the Promised Land, and Joshua was just a man of faith. He led the Israelites in the face of tremendous opposition. In Joshua 24, we see that he decides to summon all the tribes of Israel, their families, the leaders, the elders of all the tribes. You're talking about thousands upon thousands of people. And he invites them to this place called Shechem. And Shechem is a very significant place in the Bible. It's where God did countless things for the Israelites and their families. And so they go to this holy place, this place of recognition. And they go there, and while they're there, Joshua recounts all the things that the Lord had done for them. He recounts the parting of the Red Sea, the victory over the Egyptians, as well as the battle of Jericho and the hordes of armies and enemies that were racked up against the Israelites. And he recounts this to all the tribes, the children, the elders. He recounts them to all of them. And Joshua leaves them with these parting words. Let's talk about legacy, man. Joshua 24, 14 through 15. It says, "So fear the Lord and serve him wholeheartedly." This is Joshua talking to the tribes. "Fear the Lord, serve him wholeheartedly. Put away forever the idols your ancestors worshipped when they lived beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord alone. But if you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve. Would you prefer the gods of your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or will it be the gods of the Amorites in whose land you now live? But as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord." Now Joshua tells them straight up, he's like, hey, I'm going to tell you what you should do, but honestly, that's on you now. I've recounted everything that's happened in our family. Everything that's happened that's gone on. I gave you all the story. You have all the information. Now it's your turn. You need to live this legacy. You need to continue it. I can't do it for you. But what I am going to do, I'm going to say that me and my family, because that's in my control. Me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord. We're going to choose to remember the good things the Lord has done. We're going to not look back on the things that happened in our past that were painful and that hurt. We're not going to forget about the 400 years being enslaved in Egypt. We're not going to forget about that pain, but we're going to recount it to show the faithfulness of God over time in the generations of our family. As for me in my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Man, I wish I had even 4 people in here that said, as for me and my family, I am going to serve the Lord. I don't care what it is. I don't care what's been done. I don't care. But as for me and my house, as for me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord. I don't care what my dad did. I don't care what my dad said. I don't care what my grandfather said. And they talked down to me. They told me I was worthless. I wasn't going to be anything. But as for me and my house, I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm not going to let those words bind me. I'm not going to let the generational curse of alcoholism and of abuse bind me any longer, because as for me and my house, it starts with me. It starts with me. It starts with my life. It starts with my family. As for me and my house, I'm going to serve. I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to love the Lord, my God. And I'm going to love people as Jesus loved people. Right now, I want to declare, God, use me. Use my family. Use our church. Use our nation, Lord, to move in a mighty way, in a powerful way. God, as for me and my house, I am going to serve the Lord. You may be seated for just a second. Thank you. Your legacy is a choice, and it's decided by you. You know, you can take charge of your legacy, or you can perpetuate and continue generational curses through laziness. Through laziness. That's what it really boils down to. Because guess what? Legacy is hard work. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Legacy is hard work. So lock arms with godly men and women in your life and let them hold you up when you can't stand by yourself. And then you go and you pour into others and you teach them to do the same. It's not just enough to say the legacy. You have to declare it and you have to live it. You got to live it. You got to live it in your family. You got to live it for your children to see. You got to live it for your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers to see. Parents, don't forsake the power of your testimony. Share it with your children. Be real with them. Be authentic. There's nothing more that children want. Man, I'm a teacher and I teach teenagers. There is nothing more that they want than just people to be real and shoot straight with them. They're sick of the baloney. They're sick of the falsehoods. They're sick of the fake. They want people to be real with them. If we had parents who were just real, instead of acting holy and perfect, we say, hey, this is my life. This is where God has taken me out of. This is what I've suffered with. This is what your grandparents suffered with. I just want to make you aware so you can be on guard and you can stop when the enemy tries to work his way into your life, that you can stop and you can say, no, as for me and my family, we're going to continue to serve the Lord. And I saw a beautiful thing this week. Julia Aguiar posted on her story this week. It was a sticky note from high school. And this sticky note was from I think our sophomore year in high school. And she was going through her old notes because she's a super nerd, and she saved everything for her sister because she thought she was going to take AP classes too, in which she did. So she was happy she saved them, and she's flipping through her binder, and she finds this sticky note. She forgot it even existed. She forgot it even existed. And on this sticky note, it says, God does his best work when we are broken. Now, this was written by her father, Steve. And this was at a time in their family when they were in turmoil. And the enemy was attacking them. But they decided, as for me and my house, I'm going to serve the Lord. As for me and my family, I'm going to serve the Lord. And so it doesn't matter your brokenness. It doesn't matter your pain. You decide my family's going to serve the Lord. Steve decided my family, I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to serve the Lord. The Lord's going to change my life. He's going to change my heart of stone, and I'm going to serve the Lord. My kids are going to serve the Lord. You see Ava up here playing acoustic and singing. Julia's volunteering and downstairs in the youth group. Diane's right there in CFC Kids right now. Steve's in the back. He's serving today. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. He didn't know that in the moment that's what she needed, but also 5 or 6 years later, she'd rediscover that note and say, man, my father, that man of legacy, that man of legacy. I'm sure Steve feels like some days he ain't living a legacy, as we all do. Sometimes we feel like, man, I'm really botching this thing called life. It's a struggle. But your faith in your consistency over time. You're going to have ups and downs. We're promised trial and tribulation in this world. We're not promised a great, when you come to Christ, everything, you're going to get riches and glory and everything's going to be perfect and incredible. You're going to have trouble in this life. Jesus himself had trouble in this life. But as for me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord, man. We're going to do it. We're going to stay consistent. Doesn't matter what. Doesn't matter how. See, it's important for your children, your spouse, your best friends, your family, and even your enemies, the people you battle with and struggle with. It's important for them to see you live this out. Joshua didn't just say, but as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. He did. He followed up. He didn't just say that and then go live his life and do whatever he wanted and serve other gods and just go party and live his life. Joshua said it and he lived it. Can't just say it. This world is filled with too much hypocrisy, and the church itself is filled with hypocrisy. The world is sick of the baloney. I'm going to say baloney for good measure, okay? They are sick of it, sick and tired. They don't want a church that pretends to be holy. They don't want a church that pretends to be perfect. They don't want church and people who pretend like they have it all together. We got to be real. We got to tell people our struggles. We got to tell people what we've been through. We got to tell, I've been there. But God. My family was addicts, but God. My family came from alcoholism and abuse, but God. We got to be people that do that and that live that out. And so, I'll say to you as we get ready to close, what's your legacy? That happens now. Every day. Every little choice. Don't forsake it. Wake up in the morning and think about it. What are my children gonna think? What are my children going to say? You don't have to die for your legacy to live. Your legacy is right now what you're doing, the lives of people around you. You don't need children to live a legacy. Your legacy is in the people around you. Pour into them. Love them. Show them the love of God in a mighty way. Don't forsake your testimony and where you've been. You know, we have a responsibility to pour into our spouse, our children, and then out from there, every aspect of our life. Steward your household well. Watch God start to move. Steward your household well. Watch God begin to change the generational curses. Men, if you step up in your home, don't let your wife be the one to drag you onto church. You start dragging people out of church. You get up early and you say, as for me and my house, I'm going to serve the Lord. All right? I don't care. I can sleep in on a Saturday. All right? But as for me and my house, I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to be the man of my house, and I'm going to step up. I'm going to be a spiritual head of my home, and I'm going to steward my wife well. I'm going to love her as Christ loved the church. I'm going to value her. I'm going to treat her like the jewel and the angel that she is, and I'm going to let that funnel down into my children and my children's children so they can see that love is alive and the legacy continues, and it starts with the choices that we make now. So don't write off your legacy and don't chalk it up to bad luck or good luck or blessing or curse. Your legacy is now. It's now. Let's say, but as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. But as for me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord. Let's bow our heads.